The planet is restless, Captain. They want their podcast. And they shall have it. I'll beam down to the surface. You have the bridge. Captain, that is illogical. These are Trek fans. They will challenge and dissect your knowledge with great emotion. It is a mission fraught with danger, peril, and grave risk. Suggestions? Send in the red shirts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Red Shirts. We got another hot one for you today. We're going to talk about Star Trek two-parters. There are plenty of Star Trek two-parters that we've enjoyed throughout the years, but today we're going to get into our top choices and our least favorite choices. But before we get into that, a couple things I want to talk about. Well, first off, this is just a question. I want some opinions. I want your opinion. You, Craig J. Johnston, and Big Sexy, my crew members. But I want the listeners out there to weigh in as well. Now, as you all know, I have started watching DS9.
Yay!
Well, okay. Now, Big Sexy, I will say it went from deplorable to tolerable.
Deplorable?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
That first season was a trudge. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't really feeling any of the characters. You know what? Ironically, the most fleshed out character, the character that had the most dimension was Quark. And I hate the Ferengi characters. I hate him. But I got to give it to Armin Shimmerman. He is killing it. He is the most believable character. And he's got two huge ears and a unibrow. So that's did he win an Emmy for any or a Golden Globe or anything for that portrayal?
I don't believe so, actually.
Yeah, he's killing it. All the other characters, I mean, Kira, I didn't think Nana Visitor was, well, she didn't really thrill me as an actress, but she's starting to come into her own.
But she was second choice. They wanted the woman who played Ro to be that character, but she didn't want to do it.
Oh, yeah, that would have been nice.
They wanted Michelle Forbes, but she didn't want to do it.
That would have been nice, yeah, because she killed it as Ensign Ro.
Yes.
But I gotta tell you, and I don't mean any offense because they might be listening, but Avery Brooks is, man,
Here we go.
It's just not clicking. He seems so really stiff in the role, and I think it gets better around season 4 because, like I said, I remember watching the show after the Defiant became a part of the show and the Dominion War took off, and I don't remember finding his portrayal as problematic, but I know he's a great actor. It's just he's a little overdrawn or over dramatic in most of his line readings. So
Now, did they change directors or something at some point? Because surely, if he's a good actor, maybe they're just getting him to act badly.
Well,
right?
I can't. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, I don't think they had any one particular director. I think they had a few directors. David Carson's the name that comes to mind. He directed Insurrection. I want to say Ira Stephen Bear. Maybe I'm kind of throwing names out there. I don't know if he was a director or not, but they didn't have one go-to director. I think they had a stable. I've noticed different names. But anyway, so I'm watching DS9, and Big Sexy, you might remember this episode. There was an episode where this alien family, for want of a better term, it was a woman and her two husbands, I think. They came onto the space station, and the universal translators weren't able to distinguish their language, so they couldn't understand each other. Kira was trying to interpret for her, or trying to talk to her, and it wasn't happening because the translators weren't working. Eventually, the translators start working, and Kira speaks to this woman about the fact that she seems to have two husbands, and we learn that this alien race, it's a female-dominant society. And that really has nothing to do with the story, so I don't know why they played that up. But Kira says, "Are they both your husbands?" She says that to the woman. And the universal translator is working. But the woman responds, she says, "Husbands? I don't know what that word means."
Go back to bed. Go on. Go on. I'll join you again after I'm through.
Are those your husbands?
Husbands? I'm not familiar with that word. They're bonded to me.
Now, I'm trying to make sense of that. That sounds like a plot hole to me, because if you have the universal translator, if Kira said the word husband and the alien race, let's say that the word husband does not exist in their language, wouldn't the universal translator then transmit static, or wouldn't it fail at that word? Because if they don't have the word husband in their language, how does she know that Kira said husband? Am I making sense?
You are.
Or the universal translator just took the word husbands and used that instead, because there is no equivalent.
And went to the closest translation for it, and maybe that word does not resonate in that other language.
Well, one of our listeners, Ryan Roach, shout out to Ryan. I posted this conundrum on the Star Trek the Red Shirts page, and he said that it would happen if that race doesn't have a word for husband in their language. And I'm still like, I don't know if I buy that. It seems like it would like the universal translator or the computer would say, there is no translation for husband in that language.
Well, what happens if you meet someone from a different, speaks a different language now, and you try to say something, and there's not a word for a certain thing in their language? What do you do?
Well, if you have a translator, like any translating app that I've used, it'll say something like cannot translate, or there is no translation, or it simply won't do it. You know what I mean? So I feel like I've stumped. I feel like I've stumped you guys.
You stumped me because, I see implementations of universal translators everywhere. Not just within Star Trek, but within other sci-fi and comic things as well. And it's like when a word isn't, well, like in Klingon, before this one guy, was episode DS9, before this one negotiator came about, Worf said there wasn't a Klingon word for peace until they made one up. So it could be that culture doesn't have a word for husband at that point.
Right? No, I got that. I'm just saying, I don't think the alien should have heard the word husband come out of Kira's mouth if there's no word for it. She should. I would have expected her to say, "I'm sorry, the word you used, I didn't catch that. It didn't come through." But I'm being a Trek geek to the nth degree. You guys get that, right? Nth degree.
Oh yes. Oh okay. Yes.
But hey, you know what? I will take it that the translator just put out the word husband, and the alien could not understand the word. So, all right. Anyone, if you have any opinions on that, please let me know. Mr. Roach, I will take you at your word. So until I hear anything better, I'll go with that. Because it sounds like no one else really cares. Okay, moving on.
You stumped us.
Okay. Now, moving on to something more serious. I don't know if you guys read this or saw this. It is tragic news. But apparently, I'm just going to read from this article from TrekCore.com. It says here, in a statement released to multiple media outlets today, CBS made the following comments regarding this delay in the Star Trek Discovery program. Production on Star Trek Discovery begins next week. We love the cast, the scripts, and are excited about the world the producers have created. This is an ambitious project. We will be flexible on a launch date if it's best for the show. We've said from the beginning it's more important to do this right than to do it fast. There is also added flexibility presenting on CBS All Access, which isn't beholden to seasonal premieres or launch windows. So what that means is we're not going to get Discovery in May, and we don't know when it's going to come out. So what do you guys think that means?
It could mean that they were going in a direction they didn't like, and they've changed directions now. And so they have to retool. Something has gone wrong for sure.
I don't think it's a casting issue. It could be a showrunner problem or a content problem or actually a provider problem. I mean, this is bigger than the actual show itself. This
Well,
is something heavy.
well, let me read this. This is quoting from the article. He says, while this additional push out of the Discovery debut will likely be a disappointment to fans, there's an understatement, EW's Entertainment Weekly's James Hibbard offered the following commentary which may factor into the reason for a new shift. I'm not going to read this whole thing. He says, the other reason is there's still a lot of careful deliberation continuing to go into making Discovery special, from the choice of directors to set design to the special effects. While May would have been a strong premiere month for the project since Discovery will launch on the CBS broadcast network before moving to the streaming service, May is a ratings surge month. Given that Discovery will normally live on All Access, there's no pressure to fill a specific time slot. I don't know. I'm like, dudes, let's stop slacking. Let's step up the game here. It's not like Star Trek is a property that people are clamoring for. So any kind of stuff like this only serves to hurt your prospects.
Oh yeah. Delay is never good, especially when you build up a little bit of momentum by announcing the lady from Walking Dead who's gonna be your commander, and it'll be revolved around her instead of the captain. That was a good, media bomb, and now they've just dropped all that momentum.
Yeah, I do think it's bad. It doesn't look good. It almost reminds me a little bit about Rogue One, where they were talking about all the reshoots, and they never really explained it, but it's like they were going in the wrong direction, and people could tell that this wouldn't be successful, shot the way it was. And this reminds me of that, where somebody's coming in and say, look, this is not going to work, guys, or something like that. So we can only hope that it's only delayed a couple more months.
Well, you bring up Rogue One, and that actually gives me hope because I absolutely loved that movie. I saw it 3 times in the theaters. So I was not going into that film with a lot of hope because of all the reshoots and all the stuff we were hearing. And if they could put that property out, which it wasn't perfect, but it sure made up for all of its flaws in the action and the story, then okay, guys, I'll give you a reprieve, but you can't come with any bullshit now. This is your last shot. In that same article, they talk about casting a new actor. English actor James Frain has been cast as Sarek, son of Skan, son of Solkar, and father of Spock. So they're still casting. So
why do we need Sarek in this show? Well, then again, it is set earlier, so okay, I guess it makes sense.
Well, yeah, because Vulcans lived to 300 years or something?
Yeah.
So, and Sarek, I think he was a founding member of the Federation, was he not?
Oh, that's an original serious question. You lost me.
I could be wrong on that, but I know he played an important... He is an iconic character, elder statesman in the Trek franchise, let's put it that way. So, I've got no issue with him being part of the show. Now, if they start doing stuff like time traveling where they meet Spock,
no,
or Kid Spock,
Little Spock,
I would have problems with that. I don't want another Gotham on my hands here.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, well, let's get into the meat of the show. We're here to talk about 2-parters. I mean, if there's Trek, you know what? I mean, they know how to do a 2-parter. For the most part, they know how to do a 2-parter. There are countless numbers of them that I've found entertaining. But by the same token, there are a few that I thought were absolute duds. But I just wanted to kind of go through what we consider to be our favorite 2-parters and our least favorite 2-parters. So one thing I will mention, and I hope you guys agree with me, is that other than Deep Space Nine, I don't think has there ever been a 2-parter, as I'm trying to recall, that occurred in the middle of a season, or did they only occur?
Oh yeah,
there were.
Yes.
Okay. See, my memory fails me. Help me out.
Let me think. Gambit was a 2-parter in the middle of the season.
Gambit. Oh, that was the one with Picard going undercover.
Yes.
That was a good. Yeah.
That was a great episode. Unification, and my personal favorite, Chain of Command.
That's right. How could I forget that? Okay, you can take my Star Trek, my geek card right now, because
you have been demoted from Captain Old Boy to Ensign. Ensign Q.
to the brig.
I have to clean the latrines with a toothbrush.
You are cleaning waste extraction. That's right. That's you.
And again, it brings new meaning to the term captain's log. But anyway. Well, I know I was able to win. This was pretty simple for me. I mean, there were some great two-parters, like Big Sexy, the ones you just listed. All of those are some of my favorite TNG episodes. Voyager, they also had some great two-parters. As I'm watching DS9, I could say I've seen a couple of two-parters that, you know what I like? Okay, this is what it is. With DS9,
what season are you in? What season?
I'm on season 2.
Okay.
And there was a two-parter. Actually, it was a three-parter, if I'm not mistaken. It starred Steven Weber from the comedy Wings, and he was in the Stephen King. What's the one with the hotel? The Shining TV remake.
PU.
Okay.
They need to remake that, man.
Okay. Anyway. But what I liked about that 2 or 3-parter is that DS9, and I'm starting to see why people might say that this is the best of the series. I don't agree with that, but I can understand it. Is that it's a lot more edgy. There's a lot more sexuality in the show.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot more mythology building in the show. This whole Cardassian Bajoran conflict with the Federation Starfleet in the middle. It's got a lot of dimension to it. In the episode that I saw was where the Bajorans, there was this radical sect who was willing to do whatever it took to fight Cardassians. They were actually getting Cardassian weapons, not knowing they were getting from Cardassia. I think Gold Dukat was part of the liaison there, and it was really really a mythology building 3-parter. So I will give DS9 its props. It's kind of like they really are making this a 3-dimensional universe, unlike any of the other series. So I will give you that, Big Sexy. But in regards to our favorite 2-parters, I'm gonna let Craig take the helm. Craig, let me get your top 2-parter.
So because I'm still catching up on TNG and rewatching Voyager, and I'm going to get to DS9 eventually, all I can really talk to is the original series, and the original series only had 1 2-parter. That's it. Throughout the 3 seasons, only had 1 2-parter. And back when this originally aired, people had not seen the original pilot episode of Star Trek, which was called The Cage. That never aired on television. Only the execs at NBC saw that, and and after seeing it, they said, "No, you need to reshoot this, and it's too complicated for people. And who's going to believe that there's a female first in command and that kind of stuff?" And so they basically threw out everybody and kept Spock as the only original cast member. So there was this whole episode of The Cage where they come to this planet, and it's these beings called the Talassians.
Yeah.
And they basically capture Captain Pike, who was the original captain of the Enterprise, and they use mind tricks basically to make them think that they're in a cage and they can't get out of it. But eventually they escape, and they figure out what the Talassians are trying to do. They learn about them, and they figure out that they're a dying race, and they look feminine. They look very feminine, and so they sort of this dying race, and they leave the planet and so on. But the female cast member stays behind because she's an old woman and she wants to look young, because they make it look, they play the mind tricks where she thinks she's young and beautiful, but she's actually old. So anyway, so then of course nobody ever saw that, but it was actually quite an amazing episode, The Cage, if you ever watched it. Brilliant episode. And so then when this the Menagerie, which is the two-parter, when that came out, this is the first time anybody had ever seen any of that footage. And so what they did with the Menagerie was they reused a lot of the footage from the cage, and they constructed a framework around it where Spock took the Enterprise to go back to Talos with Captain Pike, who is now completely disabled and sitting in a chair, and he can only use one beep and two beeps for yes and no. And they built this whole story around it, which is very cool. And so if you had been seeing it for the first time, it would have been pretty amazing because there's lots of production value there. They spent a lot of money on the show originally, so this is an amazing two-parter. And a lot of fans liked it. I think it won some awards or won the Hugo Award, so it's really, really good. So I don't have a bad one because there was only one two-parter. So that's it, the Menagerie.
So now, what was it about? Do you remember what the cliffhanger was in the Menagerie? What was it that linked the two that made me want to come back and watch the second episode?
They were in the middle of a tribunal, actually, to convict Spock of mutiny. So I believe they stopped it in the middle of that, I think, if I remember correctly. So you sort of wanted to come back and see how it finished, how it ended. Just
to confirm, and I have seen both of these episodes, but I just it's been a while since I've watched original Trek. But so the pilot was called the Cage, and the Menagerie used footage from the Cage because they didn't want to waste all that footage. But I know that I saw the Cage uncut at some point. Now I'm trying to remember where I would have seen that. Are they airing that in syndication now? Do you know?
Yeah, you can watch it. You can. Yeah, I think in the 80s they started showing that episode in its entirety. But back in the 60s, nobody saw it. So Menagerie was the first time they actually saw that footage.
I recently saw it on BBC America, actually, because they were Star Trek. Well, I actually aired it.
What I seem to remember was, Pike had that, that all-American, that dashing good looks and all that. But I seem to recall he was just, he couldn't hold a candle to Shatner's Kirk. He was a lot more stiff. From what I'm remembering, he seemed like he was, he never really had control of any of the situations. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, that's hard to really say because he only had the one shot.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the narrative of the show, of that particular show.
I think that the original episode of The Cage, it was much more militaristic. So, he was the captain when everybody was referred to as their ranking name, and it wasn't more playful like it was when they re-released it. It re-released it with Kirk, where people were he called some people by their first names or whatever. It was very much, hey, first officer, do this, number one, whatever. So he may have seemed stiff in that way.
And this was when, do I want to say Majel Barrett was his number one?
That's right. She was Commander Hudick.
What are we running here? A cadet ship number one? Are we ready or not?
All decks are ready, sir.
She was number one, and the NBC executives were just appalled by that. They said nobody's going to believe a female can be number one of a starship.
Which is just so insane for people to say that shit.
That's amazing.
But that was the 60s, man. That's what
I know, but you have an African communications officer, you have a Asian helmsman, you have a Russian helmsman. So why is the female a problem? I don't get it. Oh right. No, those characters weren't a part of the pilot, right?
No, exactly. Only Spock. So having an alien on the ship was okay, but a female first officer, terrible.
Right. I remember the Telosians, they had like these bald heads with a lot of veins.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember, I got to watch that again. I remember enjoying it, but I thought it was kind of slow.
Yeah, it did play a bit slow. You're right. And even the when they used the Menagerie, when they reused the footage, they played it in that same kind of slow way. It did drag a little bit, but it was very enjoyable still.
Oh no, I don't deny that. It's kind of like the motion picture, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, very slow, but I still like it because it's Star Trek.
Yeah.
But now you know what they really did your boy wrong in that Menagerie. The way the actor they hired to play Pike, I mean, come on. I assume that was not the same actor, but he looks like a mess. Looks like his face is melting or something.
Right.
Yeah, they did Jeff wrong, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Jeffrey Hunter was. You're right. He was the Captain Pike, and then the actor that reprised the role for him was Sean. Well, they didn't reprise the role. That played Pike was Sean Kenny. Had Jeffrey Hunter died already? Because if I remember correctly, he did actually die pretty young.
Oh,
I
really?
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So maybe that was it. But maybe he just didn't want to come back to this weird sci-fi show that he had the failed pilot to.
Right. Well, all right. So, Big Sexy, what do you got? Your favorite two-parter?
Oh God, it's hard to say because I'm looking at my list now, and I said Chain of Command earlier, but I love Time's Arrow as well. So I would say Time's Arrow by a smidgen over Chain of Command.
That's all you got for me? Come on, pump it up.
Oh, pump it up. Oh, well, shit. Okay. Time's Arrow was the cliffhanger for season 5, going into season 6. In the season 5 finale, the Enterprise is called back to Earth because there's doing some excavating in San Francisco, and they find Data's head. And Data's head has been time-stamped, for lack of a better word, at like 200 years old. And they're like, that can't be real. It's real. Okay, fine. And they did some detective work, and they found another planet where these aliens were making incursions back into time. And the cool thing about it was Guinan, played by Whoopi Goldberg, told Picard, she said, Picard, it's usually inappropriate for a captain to lead an away crew. And he's all, yeah. She's all, do you remember when we met? Oh, yes. He said, I don't think you do. If you don't go on this away mission, we'll never meet.
What is it you wanted to see me about?
I hear you're sending an away team down to the surface.
Uh-huh.
Are you going?
Well, now, this is rather unusual for you to be curious about an away mission.
Maybe it's an unusual away mission.
If you have something to say, I'm listening.
Starfleet captains don't usually accompany away teams.
It's general policy.
This time you have to.
Why?
You just do. Do you remember the first time we met?
Of course.
Don't be so sure. I just mean, if you don't go on this mission, we'll never meet.
I thought, okay, that's cool. And so they have the little transporter buffers or pattern enhancer set up. Picard shows up, says, Worf, stay on the ship. I got this. Worf said, my place at your side is all. Don't worry about it. You take care of the ship. And they go back into the past, end up in San Francisco, where Data had already been because of an accident. So they run into Data. Data runs into Guinan, who did not recognize him because they hadn't met yet. And the only thing I didn't like is they made Mark Twain a bit of a nosy Mrs. Kravitz neighbor type. But they gave him a little bit of redemption. And they all found each other and got back to the past, or got back to the future. Data's head blows up, goes back to the past. They leave it there. So time can go ahead and complete itself. Really, really, really well done.
And that was your favorite.
That's the one. That's the one.
So okay, now you're picking that over Best of Both Worlds, Chain of Command.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
I love Best of Both Worlds. Don't get me wrong, but Time's Arrow's the one.
I watched Best of Both Worlds. I did watch Best of Both Worlds just to refamiliarize myself with it, even though I know it pretty much inside and out. And then I watched Time's Arrow. And there's a scene, maybe you could help me, that I thought was in Time's Arrow, but it's clearly not. There's a scene in one TNG episode where Data, they're in the past, kind of like in the same timeline, maybe in the 30s.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just remember there's a scene where he's looking at something on the ground, but there's a car trying to get away from him, but he's holding it by the bumper.
Oh, that's that's the one where this little computer node. He's in the holodeck when that happens. There is this little computer issue that seems to have become sentient, and they were on the train. They're on a train first for New Vertiform City, and then Data gets off the train.
Yes. Yeah.
And that car starts trying to run him down. He's like, let me just grab this car. And he's like, Captain, I've got the car. Here's the little thing where it goes. Yeah, I remember that one. That was on a two-parter, though.
I know. I think that was the one where the ship...
the ship developed some type of sentience, yes.
Yeah, I think it was Emergence, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
Not one of my favorite episodes, but I do remember it was cool, the visual of him just sitting there chilling, holding that car. And I was looking forward to that when I watched Time's Arrow, and I was like, no, it wasn't in there. Which one was that? But I did see that, and what I got confused about was, so Guinan, I mean, how did she get to that century?
You know, Guinan's people are very, very, very long, or have very long lives. And she just happened to be there in San Francisco doing her thing, and Data shows up, and Data pulls her off to the left. He's like, Guinan, blah, blah, blah. But she's like, I don't know you, man.
Yeah, but why was she there, and how did she get there? That's my question.
The why? Again, you know, her people were travelers and listeners. That's what they do. They listen. And they just happen to, you know, she just happened to be there sniffing around. At one point, when she meets Data, she tells him, she says, look, tell my dad or my father that I'm not ready to come back yet. I'm not done here. And then they drop that little line. So she was just listening. That's what they do.
And so the denouement of that, I forget. I remember they stopped the aliens somehow. I just don't remember what they did.
Well, the aliens had that pimp cane.
Right.
I remember Data snatching it from him, and it opened up the little portal between the present and the past. In fact, when they all got back except Picard, who was in the cave with Guinan, Worf said, look, we need to destroy this planet. And Riker's like, well, the captain wouldn't want that. He's all, the captain would want the mission done.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they targeted it, and all of a sudden, there's Picard. He's all, Brian, get him out of there. And they blew up the planet. And they got him back.
Okay. Yeah, that seems familiar now. I got to stop watching these episodes when I'm really sleepy at midnight. Because I find myself waking up saying, okay, what happened? I got to rewind that. All right. So my favorite, I mean, are you really going to have to ask me which is my favorite?
Best of both worlds?
Best of both worlds. It's the episode or two episodes that got me watching Star Trek The Next Generation, because as I've said many times, I had written it off after I saw the first two episodes. Because I was into the Kirk. I was into the original series Kirk movies that were really well done, I thought. I thought they were great. So when I saw the cerebral take and the more, I don't want to say PC take, but for want of a better term, when I saw the first episodes of Next Generation, I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. And again, a friend of mine, you told me to watch Best of Both Worlds. I watched that. I sat there transfixed, just like you said offline, Craig. To me, if you take that two-parter, get rid of Insurrection, get rid of Nemesis, even though I do like Nemesis to a certain degree. Make that make Best of Both Worlds cinematic quality, and you have I'd say one of the best movies that you'll ever see. Definitely would have been one of the best TNG movie ever. So many.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
Yeah, so many things about these episodes. First of all, if you ask a Trek fan, what was one of the greatest moments in Star Trek TNG, I think they're going to tell you that moment when the music, which we use for our show open, you hear that music building, the camera swivels around in an arc, and you get Will Riker close up saying, Mr. Worf, fire.
Mr. Worf, fire.
And right away it goes to be continued.
That music was great.
I watched it again for, I don't know, the 10th time. I still got chills. So basically, I mean, like I have to, but we all know the story. This is when the Borg are like, we about to handle some business. This is the Borg coming into their own. So we start off with a colony J25, or I forget the name of the colony, but they go to this colony that is sending out a distress signal, and the whole colony has been scooped up, which is a little bit of a flaw. If you have read the I think the Okudas put out a series of books where they point out all of the bloopers in Star Trek. I have them all somewhere. And they point out that the Borg don't really operate that way. They don't kidnap people. They don't just take things out of whole cloth. They will take your technology or assimilate you.
Exactly.
But the whole colony has been removed, and we come to find out that the Borg are headed towards Sector 001, which is the Terran sector. This colony was in the path, so that was the footprint that told the Enterprise crew that they were heading towards Earth. And one of the reasons that they were able to determine that is because Admiral Hansen had requested that Picard take on a field commission. Her name was Commander Shelby. Commander Shelby. And according to Picard, he calls out Hansen and says, "You seem to be quite taken with her." And he says, just the fleeting fantasies of an old man.
Keep your eye on her, Jean-Luc. She's one very impressive young lady. You seem rather taken with her, JP. Just an old man's fantasies.
Because she is pretty dope. I'm not going to lie.
I didn't like her.
Well, you didn't like her because she was ambitious, brash.
No.
Why not?
I don't like her because she, wait, you go ahead and finish. We'll get into this. Go ahead and finish.
Well, no, I think she brought on one of the best conflicts I've ever seen. Well, I can't say that, but it's up there in the top 10 conflicts, subplot conflict that I've ever seen on TNG. And it was so great because it served to answer a question that one would have, that being, why is Riker still on the Enterprise? And that was one of her purposes as a character on that show. The second was to be someone who was knowledgeable about fighting the Borg. But I think her first and foremost purpose as a character, as a plot device, was to show the audience why William Riker deserves to be number one on the Enterprise and why he wants to stay on the Enterprise. Just pointing out some things here. You see it right off at the top when Shelby calls out Riker in that poker game. I mean, you know the scene I'm talking about, right, Big Sexy?
I know. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
I got to see your whole card.
Yeah, and Punk Wesley, he's like, I fold. I still like Wesley.
That's why nobody likes Wesley.
No, I still like Wesley. But I see, to me, that's brilliant writing. They take about 5 minutes of time at a poker game, but it so brilliantly establishes these two characters. And then when she goes down on the away mission to the colony before telling Commander Riker. And I love Geordi's what he says.
She aired.
Yeah, Data says there's no vermicular life forms or ornithological life forms on this planet. Because she said something about early bird gets the worm. That was Shelby's rationale for defying Commander Riker's orders. And yeah, like you said, Geordi says, yes, she erred. But it was, I loved that struggle. I think it kept Riker on his toes. And she took away his testicles in that in the turbo lift. Okay.
See, we need to discuss that.
She's out
of line there, man.
Talk about it.
She's out of line.
She said, "May I permission to speak freely, sir?"
And he said, "Yeah."
And she spoke freely like a muff. Too.
Decade battle bridge.
Halt. Commander, you and I need to have a conversation.
You never ordered me not to discuss this with the captain.
You disagree with me? Fine. You need to take it to the captain? Fine. Through me. You do an end run around me again, I'll snap you back so hard you'll think you're a first-year cadet again.
May I speak frankly, sir?
By all means.
You're in my way.
Really? How terrible for you.
All you know how to do is play it safe. I suppose that's why someone like you sits in the shadow of a great man for as long as you have, passing up one command after another. Proceed to deck 8.
When it comes to this ship and this crew, you're damned right I play it safe.
If you can't make the big decisions, Commander, I suggest you make room for someone who can.
You're in my way. Really? I'm sorry for you, you heifer.
Well, I just want to say I did love the episode.
Right.
It played like a movie. As you said, it could have been a movie. Or it could be a movie. And I loved the subplot conflict between Shelby and Riker. It was very good. And as you said, brilliant writing.
Do you think Shelby was out of line? Did you not like her character?
Well, we were not supposed to like her character, I don't think. So she was a good actress, and she got us to despise her, I think. But she was a little bit annoying to me. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she was supposed to be, but she was a bit annoying because she seemed to be always out of line and just barging in there. It's like, well, I'm taking your position, Riker. That kind of thing.
Well, she was kind of like what we would call that millennial attitude today, where she felt entitled.
Exactly. Because at the end of the first part, before Riker makes his move, she's all, well, get Admiral, what's his name back on the thing? He's like, belay that. We got to fire now. See? Right. Know your role and shut up. I don't like her.
But he did make her first officer, so
which I did not agree with at all. Now, I understand the rationale of leaving people in their normal spots, but dude, you got a whole new problem. We don't know this heifer. She's not one of us. No, I don't agree with that.
Well, but she did know. Well, maybe you're saying she should have been science officer, not number 1?
I'm saying she should not have been second in command because she doesn't know the people on the ship. Right. And this is before Troy got command status, so I can't say she should have taken it. But they could have done something. But it should have been Data.
Well, but you do realize that she had the most, other than Picard at the time, but he was too busy being a Borg. She had the most knowledge about the Borg and Starfleet. So if she
she could have been a tactical assistant.
I know, but
leader, but not second in command.
But you make her second in command because if she wants an order followed and she doesn't have time to explain, look, I know the Borg are going to do this because I've studied them. So I really need you to do this now. So please just do what I tell you and tell you to do and trust me. Making her second in command means do it. That's an order. No more questions. You know what I'm saying? Whereas with a science officer or another position, she might have to spend too much time explaining herself with these life and death circumstances. Doesn't that make sense?
That makes perfect sense because I remember the two-parter.
I know where you're going. I know which one you're talking about. I love that. The one with Data.
Yes.
And he tells that pissant dude, oh, I hate that. I hate that guy. Oh my God.
I hated that guy. Woo, he was bad.
I wanted Data to beat the shit out of that. My God.
I don't think that guy ever got to command status either. He's such a whiny little punk.
Oh,
I can't be your first officer, Data. What? Your station.
His name was Hobson. And you know why I remember that? Because I remember Data going, Data said, f***ing emotion ship. Mr. Hobson, I need you to carry out my command. I was like, go get him. Get him. Okay, but I digress. You got my dander up right there, man. Oh. What was the name of that? Was the one with unification, right? Yeah. Okay. Another thing I found funny. I just got to point this out. When Geordi is clearing out engineering, and he does that corny little roll underneath the door.
I hate that. I hate that. Come on, people, move it. What?
It's like the door is still 20 feet up in the air. It reminds me.
Geordi.
Remember that cop that rolled in on those black kids pool party? That's what that.
mall cop. Oh man, that
But
was not a good look.
but now the second episode when they come, for the season premiere of season 4, I think it was. It wasn't nearly as good. It was still great, but you got a lot more of Picard just standing there, while Data's working on him. A lot more dialogue, a lot more talking, and I think the conclusion was a little too easy. The way they defeat the Borg just by putting them to sleep.
Put them to sleep. Yeah, that was some bullshit.
I think that because if that's the case, it seems like you would order a lot of your Starfleet officers to become Borg so you could do that.
Well, they don't have to become Borg. Now that they've penetrated their net, you replicate that, go and take the fight to them, and end it.
It seems like they should have made it a little bit more complex, because now after that you don't really see the Borg as being any threat.
And one thing I wanted to say about that is the way that Data gets into the command structure of the Borg sort of reminds me of the first Independence Day movie where they somehow hack into this alien race's computer system in about 10 minutes.
Right.
You remember that? It's like they give it a virus or whatever, but how do they suddenly learn? Nobody can learn a new system that quickly, so that would just seem unrealistic to me that Data is able to penetrate some unknown computer system. Just somehow he just does it miraculously.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but for the fact that, as we were talking about earlier, you have a universal translator that instantaneously can translate in an alien's language in first contact.
Right.
So you gotta kind
I'd
of.
rather believe in the Babelfish from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That does the same thing, but the way they explain the way it works is actually more. It makes more sense. You put a fish in your ear and it translates for you. You know, so
Okay.
you guys sound a bit lost. You probably haven't read the book.
You know what? I tried to watch the movie because I love Martin Freeman ever since I saw him in The Office, but I couldn't get through it.
But that was actually the remake of the movie as well. It was the original movie. That was the remake. But anyway, we're digressing here. But the point is that the way that I just thought that the way that they did that was a bit silly, and also, as you said, putting them to sleep. I mean, the Borg is connected to all the other Borgs, right? So surely somebody on another Borg ship must be alerted to the fact that somebody was sending a rogue command and shown up. You know what I mean?
Well, you would think that since they established later, and this is always the problem when you don't go back to and keep continuity, when they established the Borg Queen. It seems like the Borg Queen would have been able to mount a defense as soon as she saw Data. And the Borg Queen never. Now that I think about it, the Borg Queen never mentions the events of the second part of this episode. When she meets Data, it seems like she would have been like, "You're the reason I lost all those Borg on that first cube going to Earth."
Of course, the other thing about that episode, and this happens in a lot of TV shows, and it happens really in the original series as well, is that the Borg are just complete logic, right? They just, computer driven. And once they captured Picard, why did they need to hang around and make him speak back to the ship? They already had all his knowledge. They could have killed off the Enterprise right away, but they had a drawn out process, right? That was a bit, that's,
yeah.
But they do that a lot, right? It's a little construct. But the Borg would never have done that if you think about it, because they're the Borg. Why do they need to talk back to the Enterprise and have Picard speaking to number one and all this kind of stuff? They didn't need to do any of that.
Well, and by the same token, they don't need a Borg Queen either, do they?
Exactly. Exactly.
No.
Right.
I hated that storyline.
I mean, the Borg Queen could have been. Well, let's just be clear. The reason they kidnapped Picard is because they wanted a human emissary, if you will, or ambassador, to speak for the Borg, which I agree, totally unnecessary, because the Borg Queen seems capable herself to be able to speak to the human race.
But also, the Borg doesn't want to communicate, right? I mean, didn't they establish the Borg just assimilate? So wouldn't they just show up at Earth and assimilate Earth? What do they need Picard to stand up and say, "Oh, hi guys, we're going to come down and assimilate you, and here's your rights."
Yeah, maybe it was just the enemy totally demoralizing the Enterprise crew by taking their captain. You make perfect sense. But I'm okay with it because it gave me a great episode.
It was a great episode, definitely.
Just a couple other things I want to mention, and we'll move on. I thought this was one of Jonathan Frakes' best performances. For me, he's hot and cold as an actor on the series. I know the episode "Frame of Mind," if you remember that one, where he.
Oh yeah. Corny there. Corny.
He was doing his best to get his Emmy.
Yeah, he was definitely going for it.
But I think this episode is probably, for me, his standout performance. And there's one scene that I love. Remember how I talk about I love that whole militaristic dressing down, the showing of authority? One of my favorite scenes is when I loved this scene where Shelby gets put in her place. When she says something like that they're in communication with Admiral Hansen. And she says something like... well, we have to remember that Picard is helping the Borg now. And Admiral Hansen, he turns and he's like, hold the up. Let me tell this chick something right here and now. I saw a young Picard run the marathon in 3 minutes flat. Let's get something clear, Commander. He is not assisting the Borg. Am I understood? And she was like, yes, sir.
You realize, Admiral, that with the assistance of Captain Picard, the Borg will be ready for your defenses.
Lieutenant, a few years ago, I watched a freshman cadet pass 4 upperclassmen on the last hill of a 40-kilometer run at Delula 2. The damnedest thing I ever saw. The only freshman to ever win the Academy Marathon. I made it my business to get to know that young fella and got to know him very, very well. And I'll tell you something. I never met anyone with more drive, determination, or more courage than Jean-Luc Picard. And there is no way in hell that he would assist the Borg. I want that clear.
Of course, Admiral.
Yeah, she got served.
So yeah, at that point, I was like, that was her turning point, I believe. And that was when Riker showed her, look, I'm balling on the ship, okay? I am the one. I am the man on this ship. I mean, that whole separating the saucer section, it was a lot of pomp and circumstance, but it looked cool. So,
was that the first time they'd done it on the show?
No, they did it on the premiere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which makes sense.
They did it in the second, or again in the first season when they went to that one planet that ended up being like a big weapon, and they're trying to sell people that weapon.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And Geordi took command.
Oh, yes. This was when they were wearing the skin-tight latex suits or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Skin tight. Exactly. So, yeah, that's my favorite. Like, it's Chain of Command, another excellent one. I mean, Voyager, Year of Hell.
Hell is the bomb.
That was it. Had your man from RoboCop. There was another one. The one where they go to Earth and Lou. What's that actor's name? Not Lou Gossett. Ed Begley. Ed Begley Jr. is like a Tony Stark madman.
Oh yeah, and they had what's her name in it too?
Sarah Silverman.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of that because I just saw it like a couple months ago.
And she is not funny, but I liked her in that episode.
Well, I think she's funny. I think she's kind of hot too, but
her sister's better looking.
I didn't know she had it. Okay, well, don't distract me. Don't distract me. All right, so there you have it, our favorites, and I want to shout out our listeners. We had another listener, Stephen Bates, who posted up on our Facebook page. He said his best two-parters, his favorite. First one, Best of Both Worlds. Steven's my man. Okay, all right. His second is Unification. I can't be mad at that.
I can't. I'm kidding.
His last three are DS9, so I'm not familiar with these. So there's
which ones?
The Search.
Yeah, that was good.
And it's interesting because DS9, apparently their two-parters, they would give different titles to the two episodes.
Sometimes, yeah.
But his His next one is In Purgatory's Shadow and By Inferno's Light. I got to tell you, that sounds like it's going to be a pretty good episode once I get to it.
I got to pull that one up. I don't recall those titles off the top of my head.
And his last are Favor the Bold, Sacrifice of Angels.
That was good.
Okay.
That was good.
Notice nobody's talking about Enterprise.
Fortune favors the bold.
What, Big Sexy, did you hear what Craig just said?
Yeah, because Enterprise sucks.
It's not like you to miss an opening like that.
That show was terrible.
So, all right, here's where we have to keep it 100, and we have to be honest with ourselves and admit that Trek, there were some clunkers. And so we're now going to get into our worst two-parters. So I'm going to let Craig, I'm going to let you go again. I'll let you go first again.
I got nothing.
Someone didn't do their Starfleet research.
That's right. I can't watch so many episodes of Star Trek in 1 week.
All right, well, let me ask you this then. Give me an episode that you did not like.
I can't. Seriously.
Okay, all right.
My brain is not functioning today.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been sick all week. So I managed to watch the Best of Both Worlds, but that was it. But I'll get there. I need to rewatch everything again.
Well, okay. So you had the Tellusian flu. We'll let you pass this time.
I did.
All right. So it's just between you and me, Big Sexy.
Well,
I'm let you go
for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Encounter at Farpoint. Now, granted, it was their first, it was a premiere, and we're just introduced to these characters and all that. But the way they had the set design and costuming was terrible. Terrible. I didn't like it at all. Every time I see it now, I just cringe. I see the ladies trying to recapture the 60s short dress. It's just not the same thing. Then you see guys in the same outfit. You're like, really? No.
Oh, yeah, there were guys wearing skirts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, that just doesn't look right, And the whole Q thing, and we're going to put you on trial. And Riker without the beard just does not work. That beard saved his ass. Him with the clean shave, no, not at all. I didn't like that at all. I still don't like it. And I've only really gotten through all of it a couple of times. It is just not good.
Just as a point of trivia, the footage that they use of Riker when he's talking, I think when he's first contacted by the Enterprise, I guess he's on the planet's surface, or he's on the surface of some planet. They use that. I believe they used that same footage in another episode in the first or second season. It's the one where they go down to some planet, and it might be the episode you were talking about. It's a planet where all they do is sell weapons, and there's these floating things that...
Yep, that's the one.
Is that the one? Yeah. They use that footage. I can't remember how, but they use that footage. They repurpose it in that subsequent episode. Did you have anything else on Encounter at Farpoint?
No, it just wasn't good. Now, another one, I'm going to get some heat on this. Gambit didn't need to be a two-parter. Gambit was stretched out a little bit for my taste. Picard goes undercover and, they grab up Riker and a band of thieves. And the payoff at Gambit was like, we found this weapon, this resonator that only works if you have aggressive thoughts. Nah, that was bullshit.
I gotta disagree. Well, let me go back to Encounter at Farpoint. I agree with you. It's not my worst. If I had really thought about it, that probably would have been my choice. The one that I did choose, I think, is god-awful, so I'm going to stick with it. But, no, I can completely understand your choosing Encounter at Farpoint. The whole thing with the cities being aliens or something that are being under control, I just didn't care. I remember there was a weird guy who was kind of like the liaison between the aliens. He was trying to keep them hidden as aliens. A long hair. He kind of reminded me of the character that Brent Spiner plays in Independence Day. He kind of had that look. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't good, and like I said, I wrote the series off after I saw that and the subsequent episode. But that did not make my worst. My worst two-parter. I watched it recently. Dun da da da. Big Sexy, you already said it was your favorite two-parter.
What?
Time's Arrow.
Oh, hell no.
What the I hate this episode. I watched it again, and I'm going to try to put into words why I just didn't like it. First of all, it's kind of like a Western, which I don't want to see that in Star Trek. It just meanders all over the place. It tries to handle too many things. It feels dated in that it's trying to, as Star Trek went along, and and then you had, I'm going to throw out some properties. You had Terminator, you had all these, sci-fi shows dealing with time travel, and they expanded time travel and the concept of time travel and what you could do with time travel, even in the comic books, in pop culture, the notion of time travel constantly evolved, and what might happen if we could time travel. This episode reminds me of one of the first explorations of what time travel could be like, and it just became a jumbled mess. It made no sense to me. The design made no sense to me. You've got these two aliens who were dressed in the 19th century gear with a cane that looks like a snake. And you have these aliens that have holes in their heads, and so these other aliens go and take the souls of people in the past. Why does it have to be in the past? And then they go back to the future and feed other aliens. You throw in Guinan, who is, and I'm just going to keep it real, she's African American, yet in the 1800s, she's the dame of society. I mean, I wish that were true, but we know that's not going down like that. Ridiculous. And then you have one character that when he first comes on screen, I was like, wow, he's doing a great job with a lot of wieldy, complex line readings. And then 10 minutes in, I was like, please get him off the screen. He is annoying he's annoying the hell out of me. And that was this Mark Twain character. Why yes. Why so much of Mark Twain? Why did they there were scenes that went on for like 2 or 3 minutes with this guy, just rambling. And then they do the thing with Jack London. Jack London.
Yeah,
why do they always do that where they feel like they have to give you a little Easter egg? Oh, that's Jack London. So Jack London really helped Data with his machine. Get out of here, man. It just, I didn't understand why they tried to make it seem like Picard and Guinan have some sort of relationship. Were they lovers? Were they why are they building this thing up, but they never explore it in the series as a whole, nor do I think they should. They always have, I think, bad writings where you always have to put a bow on something. And they had to put this bow on, well, Picard and Guinan. He has to go back and meet with her because she's really critical to whatever. You could have taken Guinan out of this and it would not have affected the plot at all. She got way too much screen time. And the storyline just struck me as something that people on cocaine or LSD or some drug, and they had a vision of what a story for Star Trek would be. I mean, you can defend it, Big Sexy. It was all over the place, putting the old head on Data and it working. A 200-year-old head that they said was in the process of decay. How does that work? So I just thought that was like a psychedelic, trippy, in a bad way. One of the worst episodes, period. Forget about two-parters. But I remember watching it the first time, hating it, and I watched it again because I was like, two-parters. I seem to remember I didn't like Time's Arrow. Let me watch that again. I'm sure I missed something. No, I fell asleep on it on the second episode, and I was like, yeah, you can keep this one. So that's my worst two-parter. But I will say the pilot, the first two-parter, for the series.
Yeah, Farpoint. Ugh.
Encounter at Farpoint. It comes in a close second. I just want to say, so Big Sissy, tell me, what was it about Time's Arrow that spoke to you?
You know, just the fact that the way I like the way they did the relationship with Guinan and Picard, because when he goes into 10 Forward and he's talking about this little deal, she's like, "Look, man, you don't remember when we met, and if you don't go, we're never gonna meet." You know, just that type of cryptic thing without giving it away. Then when he's back in the past, you know, pretty much stuck there, you know, Riker goes in there and says, "Look, what happened?" She's like, "I can't tell you. I can't get into that. You got to figure it out." And he was just pissed off the whole time, but he figured it out. I thought it was great.
But why do you have to do that with Picard and Guinan, and you never do it you never explore any type of relationship they have, other than Guinan seems to have the same relationship with Picard that she has with any ship member. They come to her in 10 Forward, they talk about their problems, they leave. They don't do anything more than that. So why do you give Guinan so much screen time?
Well, let's face it, at the time, though, you know, this is Whoopi Goldberg, Oscar-winning actress, and you want to use her.
Okay, that's a good point. But then why not use her in a more active role? All she does is talk in these episodes.
Well, she just wanted to be a part of the team. You know, she didn't want to, you know, be out front. She's like, "Look, I want to do this for scale. I don't want to be a big deal. I just want to be a part of it."
Okay, I don't have a problem with it. Make her a crew member then. You know, give her something to do other than just sit there and talk and then get hurt. I don't know. I still don't know why the El-Arians would want to come back to that specific period in Earth's history. I mean, it seems like it'd be more interesting to come back to just be a watcher. Hello, Marvel fans. In the 24th century. They never really established what makes that century that she goes back to anything worth going back to. So, well, there you have it. Our favorite and least favorite two-parters. And I want to shout out to Stephen Bates again. He says his worst. I got to disagree with him. It is kind of silly, but it's a fun, silly two-parter. Is Descent.
I like Descent.
Yeah, I did too. That was the one where it was very comic bookish, right? That was the one with Data and Lore. Lore is kind of like Loki, who takes over the Frost Giants or something, or it's where Lore takes over a contingent of Borg who have become individuals, I believe. Do I have that right?
Yeah, because that kind of came as an offshoot of the whole I, Borg episode.
Right.
You know, and then Lore found him and did his thing, and I never liked Lore. But the subplot about that was when, who I usually hate, Dr. Crusher was in command, and she wasn't having it. So I'll give her that. I'm not a fan of hers, but she definitely got the ship running with a skeleton crew, with a young girl who said, "Look, Doc, if we do this thing in the Corona, it will work." And she's like, "You sure?" She's like, "I'm sure." And they went ahead and did it. And that other guy was like, "It better work." And she's like, "It'll work. You just cool your jets." You know, so she did what she did with a skeleton crew, and it worked out.
Speaking about Beverly Crusher taking over as captain, it reminds me of something I wanted to bring up to you about. We talked about the episode Disaster, where
yes,
Troy had to take command.
Yes.
And I don't mean this to sound sexist, but I just draw a connection because they're both females and they took command of the ship. She was kind of not having a good go of it either, but at the end she realized what she had to do, and I guess she was willing to do it on the holodeck, but not willing to do it in real life, because I don't think she ever got command of the Enterprise, right?
She did it on the holodeck, and that wasn't Disaster. That was.
No, you're right. It wasn't. You're right.
Data went to the other planet and had amnesia, and then she was taking the commanding exercise, and she had to do this one thing, and then she finally did it. And Riker's like, "Now you know. That's what takes me command."
That was Ensigns of Command. Is that the one where?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That is a great episode.
I like the Troy subplot, but I didn't really like the.
No, the data part sucked. No,
yeah,
I like the portion.
So all right, so there you have it. Now, fellas, we're about an hour and 10 minutes into this show. I want you to bear with me. I want to do some more trivia.
Ta-ta-da!
We don't want to do trivia.
We listen. Come on now. We want to do trivia. We want to do trivia.
Okay.
Our fans.
I'm probably going to get the answers wrong, but.
All right. You know what? You know what? Here we're gonna. Okay, Craig. We're gonna do. Now you've seen Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan a number of times. Am I correct?
Oh yes.
All right. So we will take our questions from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Alrighty.
I got some people saying they really liked the trivia.
Oh.
They say we sucked.
Right.
Hang on.
By the way, both of you talking about Time's Arrow has got me thinking I better watch that episode so I can be the third vote.
Yeah, and
so
when
I'll let you know next time what I think of it, and we'll take we'll make the team vote in one direction there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That we'll do that on the next show. Since Craig is now so kindly willing to bear with us, thank you so much, Ensign Johnson.
My pleasure. Don't kill me in the next episode.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put an away team of one person, and that would be you. We're gonna do one question each. Each person gets one question, and we're going to base it on a beloved Star Trek property, that being Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. None of that Benedict Cumberbatch bullshit, Khan. Although I love Benedict Cumberbatch, don't get me wrong.
I like him as an actor, yeah.
But not as Khan.
No.
So, who is going to step up to the plate first?
I'll go first.
I'm thinking Craig.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, we're going to stick with crew. All right. That's the category, crew.
All right.
All right. Question: which crew member encountered Khan first in Wrath of Khan, yet never met him on screen in the original series episode Space Seed?
That would be Chekhov.
You are correct, sir. Chekhov.
Yeah, it's funny. It's amazing the writers made that mistake too.
What? No. What do you mean?
Because Khan says to him, "Oh, I remember you," and of course, there's no way he could have remembered him. Because that's in that episode.
That's right. You know what? I was gonna say. Well, doesn't Khan say, "But you, I don't remember." But he was talking to the other guy, not to Chekhov. You're right. Wow. Yep. Okay. All right, Big Sexy. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. That's so easy. The role of Savik in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan was the first big role for which future bar manager and fat actress?
They had to go to fat actress. That's not cool. I'm going to say the lovely Kirstie Alley.
Yes, the lovely Republican and Scientologist Kirstie Alley.
Stop. We're not bringing that in there.
I used to think she was lovely too. Okay, here's a question from me. Who was revealed to be Admiral Kirk's son? Wow. Well, I don't know what his position was, but I know he worked on the Genesis device, and I believe his name was Mark. Mark, I can't remember his last name.
Okay, you want to really impress me?
And that is incorrect. It was David Marcus.
Oh, yeah.
I am ashamed. I hang my head in shame.
But he did work on the Genesis project, though. You're right about that.
Yeah, that doesn't cut it for the answer, though. What were you going to say, Big Sexy?
I was going to say the guy who played him,
right?
He was on the early 80s show. What was he on?
I have no idea, because he looks like he does have that early 80s kind of Greatest American Hero look.
He was on a show with, I'll give you a hint. He was on a show with, what's her name? Oh, God, Sarah Jessica Parker.
Oh, Sarah just. Oh, Freaks and Geeks.
Close, but no.
Not the Misfits of Science.
No.
I don't know. What do you got? What is it?
Square Pegs.
Square Pegs.
He was Johnny Slash.
Okay, all right. I'll have
I
to.
like the show, goddammit.
I remember the song Square Pegs, Square Pegs, Square Pegs. I remember that. Okay, so now it's between. I am out of the running. How can the captain be out of the running? All right. So it's between Big Sexy and Craig Johnson. All right, to Craig. Ah, man.
Sudden death, huh?
They got to come up with some better questions. Jeez. Whose nephew stayed at his post while the trainees ran? Oh, Craig, no. No. Let me read it again.
Yeah, please.
And I gave you a clue with the accent.
Yeah, you did.
Whose nephew stayed at his post while all the trainees ran?
Yeah, I actually don't know what scene you're talking about there, but you gave the accent, so I guess it is somebody who was Scotty.
It was Scotty. Okay,
I don't remember that scene.
Okay. You're right. Let me. Okay. I'm gonna have to give you another question. Okay.
All right.
Here we go. Where does the Enterprise battle the U.S.S. Reliant?
It's in a nebula.
I need the name of the nebula. Craig, you're gonna get a lot of you're gonna get a lot of hate mail if you don't get this. And as a matter of fact, this nebula, if I'm not mistaken, it appears in TNG at one point.
Didn't but yeah, in the two-parter that we were just talking about, they do the same trick that they do in The Wrath of Khan, where they hide in the nebula. Isn't that right?
Yes, and actually, it looks. I think they use the same plates.
They may have.
I think they do. Come on, Craig.
Yeah,
think about it.
Look, I'd be lying if I remember the name of the nebula, but
Okay.
I did know it was a nebula.
Okay. Big Sexy, if you win this, if you get this, you win the Star Trek No Prize.
Oh, not the No Prize.
Yeah. I'll repeat the question.
I'm not gonna get that. I ain't getting no
What?
prize on that. I don't know the name of it. Wait. This is a Wrath of Khan question, which is his strength. Give me a TNG question, and I'll take it to the bank.
The answer, you slackers, is the Mutara Nebula.
Oh well.
Okay.
Now,
is it the same one from the TMG?
I don't know if it's. I don't know if they refer to it as the Mutara Nebula, but I think they use the same visuals that they use in the film. But I can't really say too much about you guys because I didn't get David Marcus. I am ashamed. So all right, we're gonna give one more shot, then we're gonna wrap it up. So I am still eliminated. So Craig, it's to you. Wow. Okay.
I'm ready.
Excuse me. Who reprogrammed the conditions of the Kobayashi Maru test when he took it the third time?
That would be Captain James Tiberius Cook.
That is correct.
You're just lobbing these softball questions around.
You know what? I gotta call the Trivial Pursuit Company and say, look, dude, make this challenge. All right. Now, Big Sexy, if you lose this question, it all goes to Craig. Uh-oh. This may be a challenging question. Who was Khan's only follower who protested his hunting Kirk?
Oh, this is bullshit. That girl. Baby. What's her name?
Who?
I don't know.
No. What girl are you talking about?
Wasn't there a girl hanging around with him at some point?
No.
Okay.
That would be, and this is the guy, I was thinking about this guy's name when you brought up David Marcus, the actor who was in Square Pegs. That would be Joachim.
I would have never got
Joachim. I did know that. So, Craig, who did so dismally before. I'm sorry.
I did.
You win.
All right. What do I get? An away mission?
You get our heterosexual love and affection.
Alrighty.
So, all right. So, listen. In the real world, in the 21st century, there is a football game that's about to start because it is now playoff weekend. What is this? The NFC Championship or the AFC?
NFC title, and as of right now, the Falcons are ahead 7-0 with 3:49 left in the first quarter.
Oh, the game started?
Game started at 11:50.
All right. Away leave is canceled. Shore leave is canceled. Signing off.
Hey, guys.
All right.
See you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
All right. Bye.